So, without further ado, I'd love to just give you an overview of what we're going to be learning today. And the topic is how to build resilience in the workplace. So, my name is Bhavik Panchal. I'm the Senior Program Manager here at Recoded. So, what we're going to cover today is basically what I've written here. What is emotional resilience? The four different types of resilience that you might hear of. Why you'll need to be resilient? Like, what are the different scenarios in which you might see yourself having to be resilient? What does resilience look like if you were to like write it down and describe, what are the key components of resilience? The importance of it, how to kind of apply this and how this applies to being resilient at work, and then a little bit of a step-by-step guide into how to become and nurture resilience while you're in the workplace. As kind of a high level remark, resilience is something that we're not born with. I think it's something that you have to learn, and it's a process. So, everything I'm going to tell you today is something that you can kind of take away and apply it to your life. And, I think it's one of those things that practice, it's kind of like riding a bike, right? You're going to be faced with different scenarios across your life, from your work to your personal, and it's all about kind of building up practice and really realizing and being aware of those moments. So, moving on, what is emotional resilience? And so resilience as kind of a definition, I would say, is, quite plain and simply, bouncing back from difficult experiences. Like, how do you bounce back from difficult experiences? And I think one of those things that, difficult experiences can be bucketed into a few different things, right? There's adversity, there's trauma, there's tragedy, there's threats, and there's significant sources of stress. These happen in our personal life, these happen in our work life, and they kind of all get mixed together. And so, how do you really bounce back from these difficult experiences? Is basically what resilience is. And so, they can be kind of broken up into four different parts, and there's four different parts of resilience that I've read and done a lot of learning. I'm training to become a life coach right now. I've done a lot of studying around this, and everyone has different ways of looking at it. But I think the way that I like to bucket it up, and that will be relatable to this presentation, is resilience can be broken up into four different parts. Pretty straightforward, as they say in these boxes. In the blue over here, we have mental resilience. So this is the ability to pay attention and motivate yourself to do something difficult, right? There's going to be moments that, you can't do something or you can't achieve something. And you're like, how do I get myself to the other side and have belief that I can do that, right? And so it's like just having that willpower. Over here on the right in the pink, we've got emotional, resilience, taking the example of not being able to do something or failing at something or things not going your way. How can you turn it into a little bit of positive and optimism? Like, do you know what? This happens, and I'm going to get there, and kind of make yourself think that it's not actually that deep. Everything is kind of noise around us that we're, when we're dealing with stuff, and it's like, how do you really take that emotional stance and be like, what? It's actually not so bad in the end. Physical resilience, pretty straightforward, right? The ability to face physical challenges. I'll give a few more examples of all of these different areas, but physical resilience basically is like, are you going to be able to, is your body going to be able to get through it? Let's say you have to work late on a deadline. Like, are you going to be more awake to get through and face that challenge? For example, if you had a work deadline. And then over here on the green, we've got social resilience. So the ability to reach out to others when you need it. And the way that I like to think about this is, sometimes we're afraid to ask for help. We want to be able to do things ourselves. And, if we ask somebody for help, then we see that as a weakness. But actually, it's part of being resilient, right? You need to ask somebody that I can't do this. Can you show me how to do this? And it also means that you're learning, and, you're learning to be a kind person because you're asking for support, or you're there to encourage people through their needs. So that's kind of the four types of resilience as I see them. And I think they're pretty straightforward. And so how do they apply to the working world? I'd love to kind of throw a message out there to everybody that's watching today. I think there's 25 of you online. And kind of, could you describe to me or kind of come up with some points of why we might need to be resilient? What are the things that might occur at work? And this actually potentially could be personal too, but what kind of things will come up to us and come up at work that will make us more resilient, and the stuff that will trigger our resilience? So yeah, a question to everybody that's watching: what kind of things will come up that will make you more resilient, right? That's going to trigger resilience within you, like stuff at work. I'll give you an example. Having to face lots of deadlines, right? That's going to trigger something within me. And so I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to be resilient through that notion. So let's have a look at the chat here. Mobbing. If you could explain what mobbing is? I'm unsure what that means. Yep, Abada, we need it because the workplace is full of changes and different characters. Really, really important point. I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot of change in the world. Think about what's happened in the last 2 years in the world, right? We've seen a global pandemic. We've had to change the way that we work. We've had to change the way that we talk to people. Abdulaziz, having new tasks you're not sure how to do. Exactly. Look, we're in a process of change again. This kind of lures back to the point of change, but we're going to be thrown things, right? We're going to be pushed into different scenarios that we're not unaware of. I will tell you a story a little bit later on about something that I had to do, and it should be pretty relevant in terms of like, I've never done this before in my whole entire life. And do you know what? You have to have that positive outlook and kind of take that new task on. Yassine, thank you. So being in a workplace which is full of obstacles and different stuff, you're going to have to be resilient with help individuals and not to give up and accomplish their goals. Exactly. Goal setting is one big part of being resilient. And there's going to be obstacles everywhere. And not only obstacles in your work life, but if you think about, you spend a lot of time at work, but there's also going to be obstacles in your personal life that are going to seep into your work life. And I think these are kind of the things that, are going to have to push us to be more resilient. Otherwise, we're going to start crumbling, and, it's okay to crumble, I think. However, it's how do you learn from those times where you are, thinking you need to get to the other side. Furkan, deadlines cause stress and we need to manage stress. Exactly. Stress is a huge factor, and at least use it in our favor advantage. Amazing points, everybody. Thank you so much for your answers there. Yeah, totally right. You all hit the nail on the head there. So if I go over to the next thing, we have a question from Abdullah. The most interesting is resilience is the most element for creativity. Creative people are really resilient people. I totally agree, Abdullah. And I'm going to go into some of those points a little bit later on about how kind of suffering will kind of impact progress. So as we move on, that's me going backwards. Exactly, all of the points that everybody kind of wrote down kind of is conveyed here on this slide. So the examples of why we might need to be resilient. So a negative work culture where people aren't encouraged or supported. I've been in scenarios in my previous works, and I'm pretty sure that some of you have too. It could even be at university when sometimes you feel like you're not being supported, and this is like, who am I supposed to ask for help here? And if you don't feel like there's that channel of communication, it's going to be really difficult, right, for you to think that actually this is what it's always going to be like, and it's going to invoke stress. A few of you mentioned stress and heavy workload. Exactly. There's going to be times when you're at work and there's going to be so much work or deadlines that you have to meet. Someone's going to throw you a bit of work when you're working on something else, and you're like, how do I manage that? And it's going to invoke stress in you. And so I think, this is one of the most keyest things that I think that does invoke stress. But it's one of those things that if you can overcome it, it's going to make you more resilient. Poor communication for sure. Imagine you send an email and nobody replies to you. From an example point of view, is that you can send somebody 3 or 4 follow-up emails and no one replies to you. You're going to be like, wait a second, did I do something wrong? You're going to start questioning yourself. Or if you're trying to ask somebody a question and no one responds to you, you're going to be like, wait a second, did I say anything wrong? Did I do anything to upset you? And so, this is, having to deal with poor communication is going to make you more resilient. Um, One of the ones I have found in my personal experience is uncertainty around a job role and responsibility. I've give you a bit of example, but I've worked in startups and large companies, and there's been times where a manager gets hired above me, or the role's changing, or the business model is changing, and we're all sitting there saying we've learned all of these things, and now you're changing it, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And so this is gonna have to, obviously, it's going to definitely affect your mindset, and it's gonna make you struggle and question the things about what you're doing. And if somebody gets hired in front of you, you're going to be like, wait, did I not deserve to be asked for being promoted, or all of these different things? And then really important, people with mental health conditions aren't supported. Like, if there's not an open and safe channel where you can really talk about your feelings, especially now we're in a remote setting, we're not in the office. People with mental health conditions are, they're gonna feel a little bit more stressed. And then finally, discrimination, right? Sexual discrimination, religious discrimination, racial discrimination. There's so disability discrimination. If there is jokes that have been made, or comments that are made that maybe not directly at you, but this somehow impacts the way that you are working, or the way that you're feeling, then how do you overcome this? And I think there's definitely more than this, but I think there's these are kind of the key ones, and something I've faced across all of these, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you have too. It does affect you, and you don't want that to seep into your day-to-day life. Just going to quickly check at the chat. Thank you so much. If I had competition among colleagues in the workplace, needs resilience, exactly, mental and emotional. Mistakes that may occur at work, don't you think some resilience needs to be solved? Exactly, like we're going to make mistakes at work. I've made plenty of mistakes, even from writing an email with a little bit of a typo. I think I get annoyed about that kind of stuff, but then if somebody gives you feedback and goes, okay, wait, you just need to do this next time, instead of taking it to heart, how do you learn from it? And yeah, exactly. Can also to prevent burnouts. We do not want to burn out. We need to keep a really healthy balance. Thank you so much for your comments. So, in the workplace, and this kind of is typifying everything that everybody has mentioned in the chat. A quote from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that a quarter of all employees view their jobs as the number one stressor in their lives, right? We spend 70% of our lives working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, if not more. We've got 2 days, 3 days on the weekend potentially if we take a day off, or there's a hot bank holiday. And if the number one stressor is our work, then how do we become more resilient to those things that are stressing us out? And then we've had a pandemic this year, but I think stress is the global health epidemic of the 21st century, says the World Health Organization. And you can see this picture here. Sometimes your working day can very much feel like this. You're going to get emails, you're going to get text messages, you're going to get external people messaging you, people on LinkedIn. And then also, like, if you work at user internal messaging system, like people asking for where's this and where's that. And so I think one key thing is also just being able to take a step back during these moments. And I've definitely felt like that gentleman does there. And the story I'll tell you later on is basically going to showcase that. But yeah, really true. Like, stress is kind of, a lot of stress comes from the way it works. So how can we become more resilient at work? Let me just check the chat. No one in the chat. Cool. So what does resilience look like? If you were to take a person who was resilient, and I think I want to put a little bit of a marker on this, that we aren't going to be all of these. And like I mentioned at the very beginning of the event, that this is a learning process, right? We're not born with resilience. We've got to learn it, and we've got to unlearn other behaviors too to be able to learn these. And so I think if I was to take these different characteristics and apply them to the working world, and it's some of the things that you've already mentioned previously, and I'd love for you guys to comment on some of these as I go through them, and give me some examples of what you think and other examples of these different ideas. I think this is what potentially somebody who is resilient will be able to embody these characteristics. So the first one at the top, having a realistic sense of control over one's choices. I think the way that I've got to explain this one is, if I had to give an example, is that it's kind of like the deadline, right? You've got 3 or 4 deadlines, in a week, and you're working on them really nicely. And then all of a sudden, somebody's like, hey, can you get this to me by tomorrow? And I think one key thing about this characteristic is that how to give yourself a bit of boundaries. It's okay to say no. It's not a weakness to say no, right? If you've got a good enough reason to say no, then it's really important to say no. Otherwise, having 3 deadlines and one that you have to deliver tomorrow is going to cause you stress, right? And so being resilient in this situation and having control over your choice is like, you know what? Hey, sir, I've got these 2 deadlines, due in a week, and maybe I want to get them done with really high quality. And if you added another one, then maybe the quality would drop into the other task that you have. And so it's really important to say no and have some boundaries up, because these are the things that you're in control, and you can only be marked on the stuff that you have control over, as opposed to the stuff that you can't control. I hope that makes sense. And then the second one here is seeing change as an opportunity or a challenge. I think somebody mentioned in the chat that there's going to be changes literally happening every week, right? Whether it's a new tech tool that your company installs into your laptop, whether it's a new way of running meetings, whether it's a completely different thing like a whole new business model or a new team that are joining the company. These changes, sometimes could be a little bit disheartening, because you think, oh, but what was wrong with the thing before? And I'm already used to using the tool before. I don't think I could learn another one. And so if you think about the way that your career grows, every job, even if it's the first job that you get, and maybe some of you have not been working for so long, but using your first job as almost thinking about it as a stepping stone, right? Taking these learnings that you've taken from this job is only going to help you for your next job. And so change, using this kind of change, is a really important skill and a characteristic to kind of try and embody. I know I'll give you an example of myself. I've been made redundant, I think, 3 times, and these things were out of my control. But at the stages of when this was happening, I took it to heart. I was like, wait, are we doing something wrong? And so, over time, I've realized this stuff is out of my control. So if it's change, then I will adapt. And I'll try and learn from those different opportunities. The third one here, secure attachments with others and the ability to engage their support. So what I mean by secure attachments is how can you build relationships within work and have a safe space where you can either showcase your feelings or get one of your colleagues or one of your friends to understand where you're coming from. If you think about where there's times where you're sitting all four people in a meeting, and 3 people are talking about something that you don't really understand, and how can you really reach out to one of those 3 and be like, you know what, I don't really understand what you said in that meeting. However, I would love for you to explain me in a different way, instead of like not saying anything and being able to add that different level of stress when you are unaware of what the outcomes are. And so building these secure attachments with others is really important, because that way that you're in a safe space to be able to talk to somebody about things that you are maybe unsure of, right? And then you create that really nice channel of communication. I think one of the really good ones is personal goals. Let's have a quick look at the chat. Yeah, that one is important, because make happy is good social relationships. Exactly. Building social relationships, especially now we're in a remote environment, is really important, right? You're not sitting next to your boss or the colleagues that you're working with. You're literally over a video call, just like I am with you. I can't see you, but it's important that somehow whatever I'm saying, embodies a kind of a secure attachment, that what I'm talking about, and you're really open to be able to chat into the chat box and ask me a question that I can go and understand and address. And so I think it's really important to do this. And thanks for your comment. Number 4 over here, personal goals. One thing I would like to ask is how many of you in the chat set yourself personal goals? I guess this will be from a personal point of view, from a work point of view. I think, we've just been running a Master Your Job Search cohort for the Inspire series here at Recoded. And, there's a section on goal setting and how do you set goals and what goals do you set. So I'd love to get an understanding of, which one of you sets goals, and like, what, give me an example of a goal that you set for yourself. I'd love to kind of read some out. I'll give a couple of minutes for people to write some of their goals in there. I'd love to hear what goals you set for yourself. I'll give you an example of what I set myself. I try to network with 1 person or 2 new people a month, and this is somebody that I don't know or don't know the industry, and this might not necessarily impact what I'm doing right now, but it might help me in the future. And so if I build up that connection, that secure attachment with somebody, and I need somebody to support me or give advice or something, or maybe I am looking for an introduction for somebody that they know, I can reach out to them again and I build up that secure attachment with them. I can learn in German, really, really great. That's great. And, it's important to set yourself some really good and strict times there. And so this is a really key part of being resilient. So if you set yourself some goals, you have something to work against. So you hold yourself accountable. You're not influenced by other things. And so that, I'm going to go and do this. And if it doesn't work out, great. At least I'm trying to work towards that goal. Work-wise, contacting a person every once in a while, really good. Beza, I want to be a web designer that the company wants to work with. Great. And so like the goals within that could be, you might not necessarily become a web designer within, a year, but what kind of the steps do you need to take to become that? And if you're setting yourself those goals, it's going to make you more resilient, right? You're not just being like, oh, I can't do it. I'm going to get there eventually, right? And I think it's really important to have that mindset. Trying to balance between university and working out and being healthy and productive. I really want to make the most out of my time. Super important. Health is really important. If you think about what makes our brain tick, right? If we're not healthy, our brain is not going to function really well. So setting yourself some personal goals around that is going to be really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. Farhad and Aya, yeah, really great. And so moving on, to this 5th point, a strong sense of humor. And so this is not saying that we have to be stand-up comedians. We don't have to be telling jokes all the time. I think it's more about, can we laugh things off? A story I'm going to tell you at the end is that it's okay, right? Stuff happens, stuff gets in the way, but really it's a little bit of just extra noise that was out of control. So can we just laugh about stuff? Things are going to go wrong. It's part of human nature. It's part of life. And so can we just laugh at ourselves and be like, what, that was really silly of me. Like next time I'll learn, right? And I think that is really important to go to laugh at yourself and be like, these things just happen. I think it's a really important skill, right? And just kind of addressing that things happen and, it's never going to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect. Work is never going to be perfect. But if we can laugh about the fact that, this is just the way that the world goes round, then it's a really important skill. Patience in the workplace. Well, patience, you're sitting there, you're waiting for stuff, you want to get things done quickly, right? You want to speed ahead. If you speed ahead, then the knock-on effect of that is that the quality might be low. Or if you take too much time, right, and thinking about things and then try to speed ahead again, things might go wrong, right? So it's really important to be patient. That's really different. A different way to look at the characteristic of being resilient, because you think that something happens, you've got to react to it straight away, but actually take a breath, right? If you feel really stressed about a meeting or something that you have to tell your boss, or you've been working at your laptop for 15 minutes, 15 minutes, at one time, and you've been really concentrating on a specific thing and your eyes start to hurt. Take a step back, go for a walk, go and get a glass of water, think about it and be like, what, I'm going to go back to that. And people, I've done this. I'm really prone to this. I've been sitting on my laptop since 10 a.m. this morning, like for 3 hours straight. And then I was like, you know what? I need to have a quick walk. So I stood outside and took a little bit of a break. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be fine. So patience is super important. A high tolerance of negative effect. So, I think this kind of encapsulates some different things and like change, and sometimes changes can be bad, but just understanding that there's going to be ambiguity, right? And what I mean by ambiguity is that stuff that is in the unknown, stuff that consistently happens that's going to be bad, and just really understanding that exactly like the phrase I said for the centurion, that this stuff is going to happen. Just take it on. It's out of your control, and so this is a really important part of being resilience. And then the final two, an optimistic outlook and a high level of adaptability, always looking on the positive side of things, right? If something bad goes on, what could be the good that could be come out of it? If you miss a meeting, right, you can apologize, and then at least that person will know, hey, it's okay. He apologized last time. Next time it won't happen again. And you're being positive because you're taking that initiative to be like, you know what, I won't do it again, right? It's not anything bad. Things happen and things get in the way. And so these are kind of an embodiment of the characteristics that you can apply to at work, and some examples of like those different scenarios. And I would love to get some of your ideas later on about the types of times you've had to become resilient, whether it be in your professional environment or in your personal too. Great, moving on. And just for reference, Better Up here is a really great reference point online. So if you want to go and check out some of their content, they have some really great content and videos around mental health and resilience and kind of emotional intelligence in the workplace. Cool. So to kind of encapsulate that and everything that we spoke about there, I think the three key things to take away from those things is that resilience in the workplace can help you recover from challenging experiences, but it can also assist in your growth, right, and development. You're going to learn from these experiences, and the first time it happens, it might push you back, right? The first time I got made redundant, I was really sad, and it's going to be fine if you think about it in a structured way and be like, you know what, these things happen. And so the next time it happened, I became resilient to that outcome. And I managed to be like, you know what, it's not so bad. Something better will come around. And that's kind of the way to have a look and a consistently positive outlook. But it takes time, right? These are not skills that you're going to learn in a week or a day. These come from experience. And so I wanted to kind of share that with you. And then, deal with each situation they face with each, and deal with each situation as they come, right? Every situation is going to be different. What's different, the way that it happened to me, it's going to be different to the way that it happens to you. And so these are all really cool things that you can apply, kind of to your working world. And, if you show that it's negative, if somebody says, oh, I'm not going to change the way that I work, right? That's going to push the other person back. And that doesn't show that you're resilient. That shows that you are not open to feedback, right? And you're not willing to change. And, this can have a negative effect to your team or to your company. And so what are the outcomes of emotional resilience at work? And I'd love to get an idea of if there's any more that I've missed. I'll quickly look at the chat. Is there anybody in the chat? There's a cute question. I'll quickly have a Farhad. I'll address this at the end of the event. So if anybody wants to quickly look at these kind of outcomes of resilience at work, a few of you mentioned them before. So like, be more resilient at work will help you better handle any of the challenges that come your way, and it will improve your communication. For sure, it will reduce your burnout. It will help you build better relationships among colleagues, and it'll give you the willingness to learn and grow. And really important one, like I mentioned just for an example ago, is that it gives you the willingness to give and receive feedback, right? There's going to be times where somebody doesn't like what you've done, or you might have done it in a different way, and maybe there's a better way of doing it. Instead of going, hey, I don't agree with you, it's like, you know what, next time I'll give it a go. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And you know what, people, I used to take stuff like that to heart, but if you address it in that way and you'd be like, thank you so much for sharing, I'm going to apply it to the next time I do it, it shows that you're willing to change, right? That's building up your resilience to receive feedback and also improving the way that the way that you deliver your work. And I think, it's really important to see. And if there's any more, feel free to write in the chat. But I think, these are kind of the key outcomes of being, the key outcomes of being more resilient at work. So, question back to everybody that is watching today. I think there's 24 of you online. I'd love for you guys to all give me an example of what the trigger was and when you had to be resilient. 3 or 4 examples would be great. And I'd love to read a few out and kind of share with everybody, what everybody's thoughts are. I'll give you my thoughts on them. And then, I'll kind of, feel free to use the Q&A function for some questions as well. But yeah, could you kind of all kind of have a think of a time when you had to be resilient? It could be in your personal life too, right? If you think about, resilience at work is one thing, but, we all have stuff going on in our personal life as well, whether it will be money, relationships, friends, sport, like, your football team is losing. Like, how do you not let that impact the way that you live your life, or how does that impact your outcomes, right? If you think about all these different examples, they all can kind of all merge together. So it's always about thinking about how can you learn from those experiences. So yeah, if anyone's got any really cool examples of an example of when they had to be resilient, I'd love to hear from you. I'll give you like a minute just to have a little bit of a type. Okay, Furkan, thank you. My friend and I were dealing with the school project at the time. Cool. Yeah. What was the school project? And then, yeah, what happened? Mohammed, when a customer or a boss gives you a bad or critical feedback when a thing doesn't work the way that you want it to, of course, I've worked in customer service for a tech company, and it was a parking app, and somebody was stuck in the barrier, and they told me that the app is rubbish, and I was like, okay, I can't say that you're using it wrong, but I'm going to take your feedback and go and tell our tech team to try and fix it and then get back to you. And I think it's really important to be like not taking things to heart, because you didn't build the car park, you didn't build the tech, so it's really important to be able to take that feedback. Manuel, because of my angry habit, I lost some communication, so I had to learn to be more resilient and not lose more. Amazing. Yeah, we all get angry. Things are going to make us really, really angry. And so it's like, next time something like that triggers you, how can you think about how you can't use that anger and react? It's like, how can I be more resilient? Be like, you know what, that made me angry, but how is it really affecting me? And really asking yourself those questions. Abdulaziz, had lots of workload during a certain time period with lots of deadlines. I panicked a lot at first, but tried to look at it from a point of view of the challenge being a chance to handle demanding work and exercise my time management, because things work fine eventually. Exactly. I always say this thing. Guess what? Everything will always work out as long as you have a positive outlook. And looking at it like that, and the story I'll tell you in a second is going to be very much along those lines. You'll get there in the end if you think about things positively. Because once we're faced with adversity, it brings out the best in us, right? We'll work to deadlines, we'll work late, even if we have to work a little bit late, it's totally fine. We'll get it done in the end, and you can be really proud of yourself. Exactly. When somebody has messaged you and they don't reply, and so you're like, wait, is that down to me? It's happened many times with me before, when I send somebody a message and I'm like, wait, did I do something wrong? And actually, you don't know what's going on their side of things. They could have been held up, their phone might have died, right? All of these different things, but we immediately go, hey, maybe I've done something wrong, but actually it could be something out of your control. Exactly, Fahad. When dealing with customers working in customer service. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. Great. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Really nice to hear that we've all had to uh, be resilient. And, like I said, there's times where we just have to keep on learning, right? I'm not fully resilient in all of these areas. Don't think we'll ever be. We'll always have to, something new will always come up. And so it's like, how do you adapt and learn from those experiences? Great. So quickly just to end, and I think this is kind of everything that we've talked about, and then I'm going to tell you my story about the very beginning, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how crazy that is. But a step-by-step guide to build resilience at work. So you could say that there's more. There's probably about 6 or 7 and different areas, but these are kind of the ones I've highlighted at the very beginning. That's helped me, especially working in a remote world. Everything is changing. We're going to be working with people from so many different countries, so many different time zones, and so many different backgrounds and religion and race and culture, and also like experiences, right? And so these are kind of the 5 kind of outlines of and steps I've kind of outlined to take into your day to day, right? And I think these are the things that have helped me. So if we kind of take it from the top, health. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, to like look after yourself and try and go to the gym. Really pay attention to how your body feels. Look after yourself. If you're looking after yourself, you can focus on your physical well-being and your mental well-being. I think it's really important. Before I did this meeting with you today, I did a 5-minute meditation. I was like, okay, it's going to be the first time I do this, and so it's going to be really important that I'm calm. Everything is going to be fine. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm like telling myself these things that I'm going to be fine is going to help you feel more at ease within yourself, which kind of ticks that box, right, of looking after yourself. The second one here, tenacity, managing your thoughts. So practicing reframing threats, right, and so looking at positive things that somehow could come across as negative, right? Cultivate optimism, being like, do you know what? It'll be fine the next time I do it. I think this is really important to have a mindset, think about these things. Collaboration, as we've mentioned before, building connections with other people and having a strong social network, right? You have your group of friends, you have your work colleagues, you have your family. And so how can you work and build relationships with these people that are going to hear you, are going to listen to you, that are going to see who you are, so they can provide you with emotional support. And so when you're at work, it's really important, right, to kind of build those relationships, right, whether it be with your boss who you talk to the most, somebody that you're reporting to, teams that you're working in, right? Find out, get to know them, right? Find out what they like to eat. Find out, where you might have some common ground. And once you start building these connections with people, there's going to be times where you're faced with adversity, and you can definitely reach out to them and think about, how can they support me? Composure. So practicing self-awareness, really important. This is basically what it says on the tin, right? Telling yourself, guess what? I'm here. It's just us. It's not them. It's just us, right? There's no them. And so thinking about it like that and being more aware of your surroundings and who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, right, will help you be more resilient. And then finally, vision. So inner drive and future outlook, like setting yourself some goals, being able to focus and solve solutions for positive change, right? You're going to fail, but can you set yourself goals? Because even if you do fail, you're working towards something. And so these are kind of 5 steps I've identified. But if you take a look at BetterUp, like I mentioned earlier, I'll obviously share this presentation with you after. But there's so much out there to like understand, what will work for you. And like I said, we're not going to learn everything at once. It's a bit of a process. So I think it's really important to be able to like manage your expectations and be like, what, these things are going to come with learning, right? And once you've experienced something, you can learn, and sometimes you can teach other people as well. Cool. So thank you so much for listening. I kind of wanted to end on my resilience story, and so I hope you guys can appreciate this. And Diana, who was actually meant to be speaking today, emailed me at 8:30 p.m. last night saying that she got back from London and she had a sore and a cold all over her mouth, and she wasn't able to speak and eat at all. And she said she had to postpone the session. Is that possible? And I did not want to let you down, so I kind of took it out of my way and be like, you know what, I'm going to create the presentation myself, add to the slides. And you know what, I was scared, I was frightened. I was like, I've never done this before. Resilience, I mean, I know a little bit about resilience, but I don't fully know, like in terms of teaching it. And so I took it out of my way, bearing in mind that earlier on yesterday, my laptop died and I had to quickly run to the computer shop to go and get it fixed. And so at 2 p.m., my laptop died, had to go and get it fixed. I came back and I opened my laptop and I received this email, and, people get ill, so I'm not angry at all. But I really could have been angry. And I was like, wait, it's the day before the event. What am I supposed to do? Like, I've never done this before. And so I took a deep breath. I went for a walk. I had a glass of water. I meditated. I called a few people. I called my dad. I called my mum. I called a friend and be like, is this going to be fine? And they gave me the words of encouragement saying, you know what you're doing. I shared the slides with my friend to be like, can you see if this is okay? And, here I am presenting this of something that I didn't know that I was doing yesterday. And so throughout those moments, it's really ironic that I had to be resilient throughout yesterday evening, throughout this morning, being like, is this going to be okay? And then actually during the presentation to deliver this. And, I really hope it made sense, and I really hope it was really helpful for you. But I just wanted to give you a real life example, which is kind of ironic, given the circumstances. So yeah, I'd really appreciate if you had any comments, and if there's anything you wanted me to expand on a little bit more. But I really hope this was helpful. So yeah, that's my story of resilience. And, these are the things that are going to be thrown at you, left, right, and center. Whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. And, one thing I have to do is reflect and relax, and everything will be fine. A few bits of chat. Given how smooth, thank you so much for your kind comments. It was really beneficial. Thank you. Live example of resilience. Thank you very much. You're a great communicator. I really appreciate it. See, that makes me realize that I have faith in everything that I'm done or that I'm doing and I've delivered, and it makes me really happy that you appreciate that. So 2 quotes I want to leave you with, and then if there's any questions, I would love for you to kind of ask me at the end. But 2 quotes I really live by: out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. So through suffering, this is the only way we're going to learn, right? We're going to have to push ourselves through those boundaries. We're going to be faced with a lot of stuff that we are unaware of or is unknown to us. And if we can get through that, we learn from it, and it will make us a bigger character than we were before. And we'll have all those scars to show for it. And then finally, man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit, right? We are super special, super important with our spirit. And so if we can kind of use that spirit and channel it into be like, you know what, it's going to be fine. I think it's a really important skill. We can push that ball up the mountain if we really wanted to and really tried. Okay, that's enough of me talking. Thank you so much for listening. Do we have any final questions? Otherwise, I will leave it there. I'll give people a couple minutes to ask anything. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to me.